Welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network, the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. Fortunate to have on the line with us our football expert, none other than Coach Heiss Northern. Coach, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, everything going pretty good. Funny thing, I guess it's not funny, but it's serious. The wife is out of town on a work obligation. So, my main thing I tell the kids, don't get hurt while mom out of town. And
I know that's
try to
right.
make sure they get everywhere they supposed to be and make sure they stay fed so they won't complain. When mama call and say, we hadn't had anything to eat, but there's plenty of food cooked in there for them. So they got a couple choices.
I know that's right, Coach. You remind me of a story. My wife had gone out of town, and my kids, they were pretty young. I think my oldest might have been about maybe 9, 10 years old. And I'm running, doing everything, man, and I'm get them all in the bed. I'm feeling good. Oh, man, this was nothing. Always talking about taking care of the kids in the house. I held it down like a boss. My oldest son come up out of the bed. I said, what you doing up, boy? He said, well, Daddy, we hungry. I said, Lord, I ain't fed these kids all day.
Yeah, you get to moving and you think you done took care of everything, but you forget one of the easiest things that it should be to do. But, it happens to the best of us, as they say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, look, happy holding it down, man. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to take care of things. I'm pretty sure Adam will remind you if he needs a meal or two in his system.
Hey, that's why I try to teach them how to fend for themselves. Both of them can cook for themselves, and they know their way around the kitchen a little bit. So that helps too. When if they don't like what I prepared, well, they can go in there and make their own thing without burning down the house. So it's good that I can do it for them, but at the same time, it's also better when they can do for themselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Coach, we got a lot of activity moving around in the coaches' room, and there's still some moves to be made. With what you are aware of, can you bring our listeners up to speed of what you know for concrete of some of the coaching changes?
Yeah, well, so I think since the last time we talked, Coach Dish, as I call him, Coach Dishman has been hired at Texas Southern, so that's official. Prairie View's offensive coordinator left. He went back to Southern University, which is his alma mater and not too far from his hometown. And a side note on that, Coach Frederickson and I, we go back a good way since I did play at Southern, and we also hunt and fish together when we have free time. So he did officially take the job at Southern, and like I say, his hometown is probably a 45-minute ride from the campus of Southern University, even though it's in Mississippi. So he went back home. Texas Southern's former offensive line coach, I call him Coach Manning, he went to Jackson State, and I really think, I always had a lot of respect for him as an offensive line coach. If I like I say, if I was to get back in coaching, he would be one of the top guys that I would call to come and work with my offensive line. He's had a variety. He had success at a variety of schools with different types of guys. But like I say, he's a very good coach going to Jackson. And then Jackson also hired one of their former players, a former linebacker, to come back and coach the linebackers and special teams. So it's a good bit of movement. Coach Mickey Joseph is completing the staff. From what I understand, he may still have 2 openings. And I remember you and I talked a while back about one of my student coaches that was on the staff. He was a defensive coordinator for Coach Asbury at Southern Lab. He is now on the coaching staff at Grambling State University. So it's still a lot of, all right, one guy moved, then let's try to backfill him. So it's still a lot of calls. And sometimes people's coaching staff may not get really filled out until either spring break. And then after spring break, some guys may, a guy may get a call up to the NFL or to get a analyst job at a Power 5 school, and then you'll have some more movement. Then somebody needs to backfill that guy. So it'll be guys. And I remember one year I lost a coach, I want to say maybe 2 weeks before the season started. So, you'll still have that, last-minute movement or illness. a guy just sort of simply gets sick and tired of coaching and may retire, just say, man, I could do something better with this. So it's still going to be moving, but at this time, it's a good bit of movement because you just had the coaches convention a couple of weeks ago. You have a lot of people on the road. And the funny thing that I find, especially at some of the big schools, what they are doing, they are keeping guys on staff until signing day, and then they letting guys go. So I really find that both puzzling and I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. I don't find that practice very honorable because you recruiting a guy, a young man, and I understand that's your job, but you recruiting a young man knowing that you're not going to be there, but you can't tell him that you're not going to be there. So it's all that type of stuff like that that's still going on in the coaching ranks.
Well, that's part of the recruiting wars. And then Prairie View, of course, filling in their vacancy with Frederick moving to Southern with a guy you're quite familiar with too, huh?
Yes. So from what I understand, Coach Anthony Whedon is Coach McDowell's new offensive coordinator, and a lot of Panther fans may remember I call him Coach Whedon or Anthony as he was a sort of all-purpose guy for us. He could play running back. He could play the slot receiver. He was a great kickoff return guy. So he was a great player for me. He went off. He was my student assistant, I think, the first year that I was the head coach there, if I'm not mistaken. And then he sort of went off on his own to a couple of D2 schools. His latest offensive coordinator job was at Campbell University. And, he sort of parlayed that into a chance of coming back home to his alma mater. For a lot of guys, that's pretty big. And he's a Houston native, so that would probably help him on a recruiting trail, as well as it'll make some alums happy as long as he's putting some points on the board. So it's one of those things. I think he's going to be a good addition to the coaching staff from a recruiting standpoint and from a coaching standpoint as well.
Okay, I got one more question before we move on, Coach. Who's the better marksman, you or Frederick? You talking about your hunting partner, so who's the better marksman?
Man, I'm gonna say we gonna be tit for tat on that one. I like to say, I like to say, depend on what gun I'm shooting. I don't think it's nobody that can touch me with a 22 or a 22 mag. Now, once we get into some of the higher caliber rifles, I think we gonna even out. But man, with a 22, I'm pretty good with it. I just leave it at that. I'm not gonna tell you what I could do a squirrel or a rabbit with a 22, but we're not gonna have to do any tracking, and I'm not gonna mess up meat when I use that 22 though.
I know that ain't gonna be right there where you're hitting, right?
Yeah, and also when we go fishing, a lot of times I let him get on the front of the boat and fish. And we have a good time. It's sometimes that I've been out there with him, and I'll be like, hey man, if you catch 2 or 3 more fish in a row, you're gonna have to swim back to shore. So like I say, we have a good time. Him being the offensive guy, me being more of a defensive guy. We talk about, we spend more time talking about football and how to handle certain situations than we do hunting or fishing when we're together. So it's a good little balance of having a chance of being out there with your buddy, that either you going through the same things or you've seen some of the same things and bouncing ideas off each other. So I wish him well, like I say, not only because he's going close to home, but because he's going back to a place that we both played and we both had success as a student athlete.
Right. And I'm pretty sure if I ask him, he's going to tell me that he was the better marksman, but I appreciate your nobleness on that. So with all that being established, Coach, this is the time of year where I get excited as far as signing because, let's be honest, the early signings are for the big boys, and this is when we kind of start digging our boots down in the ground between now and spring. And one thing I want to kind of focus on today was recruiting. I don't know what your budget was when you were coaching, if you even had a budget, but how critical is the budget? And then are there some who are way more advantaged on our level at recruiting budgets in comparison to what you have? And then how do you adjust your lack of when it comes to recruiting?
Well, one of the things that, just say if you have a limited budget, that you have to sort of be creative, like how you get kids on campus is the biggest thing. So for some schools, what they may do, just say a school with a big budget, they can bring a kid in on Friday, which we call it an official visit, where they pay for everything. They pay for the food, the hotel, the games if they go to a Dave and Buster's type of restaurant, all that type of stuff that you can mix in. And you have to have money to pay your current student athletes in order to take your recruits out to, maybe an on-campus basketball game, whatever else they may have going on within I think back then it used to be a 30-mile radius of the university. So it's different rules that people don't know. So just say if I'm at a school with a good budget, I'm going to go get a nice hotel. I may make sure that they have a nice basket or cookie when they get in the room. I'm going to make sure that the parents are well taken care of. All those types of things. So they get there on Friday, and we usually would go out to eat somewhere on Friday night. Then the student athletes that are already enrolled at the university would either come meet them at the field house, the gym, or the hotel or the restaurant, and then take the guys out, for a quote-unquote night on the town or a night at the dorm or somebody's apartment, and they'll have, a few, what they would call a kickback. They probably going to have some girls come over, some of the guys that's on the team, and just, play the video game, play cards, dominoes, that type of thing, and maybe have some food over. And then on Saturday, what you probably would do, depending on your budget, you're going to get them up and take them to breakfast, a brunch type of deal, and then they would meet with the academic or the administrative side of campus, which, the athletic director may come. When I was at Grambling, our president of the university would come and actually talk to the recruits and their mother. And then the people that were over academic affairs may come and, talk to the guys and their parents. Or you may have a alum that a lot of people knew, or a former coach that would be around and talk. So they would meet with the academic, the compliance officer would come and talk to them, the academic advisors. You may have people from the different colleges. So just say at a school like Prairie View, a lot of kids going to come with the thought that they going to major in architecture, engineering, or nursing, or criminal justice. So we may have someone from that department to come to the academic meeting and sit down with the parents and tell them, look, this is how we do it. We can get you out of here in 3 to 4 years, probably with the exception of engineering. So you do that, and then hopefully we always try to schedule our best players for weekends that we had a basketball game on campus, because that's easy, sort of cheap entertainment where you can go and have them sit down on campus, get a nice picture of the environment that they're going to be in, to sort of see if they like it. And, for some of those guys, they've probably never seen that many black people together in one place, especially that many black females. Just say a kid like Adam from a suburban school in Texas has never seen that many black females, and their eyes are wide open. So, for some of those guys, that's a selling point. Then, just the environment of, you in there with a DJ, you in there with a band, and a good basketball game going on. So you showing them, look, this is what we have to offer. You don't have to worry about going home every weekend during the off season, because this is what you have a chance to partake of. And then after that, we usually let them go out again with the guys on the team. And Sunday morning, we usually would end that, the last day of the recruiting trip, with, we're going to bring the guys in and make them, an offer, see if they want to commit, non-commit, or what did they like. And we try to get feedback. What do you think about the guys on the team? What do you think about the uniform? What do you think about the dorm? So we go through all of that. That pretty much is going to take you through the official visit. Now, the rest of the week, your coaches are probably going to leave out on Sunday if not early Monday morning, and then they have an area that they're going to go to where they're going to, hit the schools again, do some follow-ups, get an early look at maybe some of the guys that are juniors now that they're going to need to look at next year. So I would always, tell my guys and tell my wife, you're probably not going to see me except on maybe Saturdays or Sundays, because I would want the parents of those players to see me with my wife and kids at the basketball games or at a dinner. And because my wife was in recruiting, she could talk to some of the parents about, oh, we have an internship program with Prairie View, whether she was at GE or now she's with Microsoft, those types of things. So I wanted the players and their parents to see me with my family. But real talk, I probably only saw my family a little bit on Saturday if we had a home basketball game, and then maybe Sunday before I went back out of town. So the whole month of January, you're pretty much in hotel rooms, and then you get home Saturday or Friday night to host the official event, and then you back on the road until signing day.
I got a two-part question for you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
I've heard you mention a big budget. I want to know, A, what is considered a big budget, and what's the average, if you have that big budget that you spend on a recruit per visit?
Well, I can't give you big budget numbers, so I'll tell you this. The thing that a lot of times might eat up your budget is if you have to pay kids to fly in, which at one time at Prairie View we did, and even at Grambling, because Grambling had a coast-to-coast name. We could bring kids in from California. We could bring kids in from the East Coast, Florida. But the problem is that some of those schools, when you fly them there, it costs a lot to fly into a Monroe or a Shreveport. But if you fly in kids into Houston, you can save a little bit of money. The other thing is the hotel cost, and then how many people would come with the kids. So I just say on average, you're going to spend $100 a night on a hotel room for 2 nights, and then the food budget can get up there depending on if they eating on campus or not, or if you're eating in restaurants. And like I said, you still have to pay. So I would say on the low end, you probably on the weekend maybe $500 per person if they staying in the hotel 2 nights. You feeding them 2 to 3 times a day, and then if they bring parents and all that type of stuff. And some people, truth be told, you can't tell a kid not to bring his grandma or his little brother, but it's only supposed to be X amount of people per student athlete. So it's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that. But what we would do, just say if I was somewhere that didn't have a lot of money, I would tell a guy, okay, you come up on Saturday morning instead of staying in the hotel Friday night. You come up Saturday morning, and we may let you stay in the hotel Saturday. Or if not, once the basketball game is over with, we would tell the kid, okay, come up on Saturday, and once the basketball game, you go back home. That's what a lot of schools do if they don't have a big budget to save money. Or they'll just say, okay, we'll give you some mileage to get here. We'll say, all right, we'll give you $100 of gas to get here, and then that's all that you're going to get from us. So anything else past that, you have to cover on you. And some people say, okay, for my kid to go have a chance to go to college, I'll spend $100 worth of gas to drive from Dallas or to drive from Lake Charles or San Antonio or something like that. So I can't give you a number, but I can tell you sort of how you fool with the budget if you don't have a big budget. Okay, you stretch your dollars, as they say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Old saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of robbing going on this time.
Now, when you go, and I'm pretty sure that some players are turned off if it seems like there's a strain on the budget to get them to come there, because let's be honest, ego is part of what drives successful ball players, and everybody thinks that they're that dude, especially at that age, and they feel like they need the red carpet laid out. Is that one of the emphasis on why there's so much stress and echoing about recruiting within your state boundary to cut down on travel expense? And I know overall expense as far as housing and funding students if they do decide to be a part of your team?
Yeah, that's something that does come in when you talk about the recruiting. And some schools actually have in their athletic policy, okay, we're going to give you X amount of out-of-state scholarships. So that when you have that from the get-go, that will cut down on your travel budget. But, you know, a lot of people say, man, we need to sign more kids out of Waller or Hempstead or whatever. And in my opinion, in the big scheme of things, that's not going to affect how many people show up to a game, in my opinion. But some people swear by it. I have never seen the amount of people change based off of where kids from. The thing that makes your crowd grow is going to be historically how have you performed, as well as are you winning games. Now, you can see, I think the biggest thing that you see when you win in football is an enrollment jump more so than increase in fans to the football games. So just say when I was at Southern, when I went to school in 1991, Southern hadn't won a lot since the 70s, I want to say. So when we started winning, we went 11-1 my third year of school. I just say my junior year. We went 11-1. So you could tell when we came back that next year, the parking lot was full on campus where the band practice field was. It was actually a parking lot. And then you can see the more and more people, you know, we might have went from 8,000 to 10,000. The same thing when I was coaching at Grambling. Grambling had came off of 3 years of 3-8 or 4-7 football. And then when we started winning, you saw an uptick in enrollment. So, but we didn't see a big uptick in home game attendance. I mean, some years we only played 3 games on campus per year, and it's because of the location. But I do think that because of bringing local kids in, that does save your budget, because you can easily tell a kid that you don't have to stay in a hotel, or if you've been on a couple unofficial visits, yeah, you can come and enjoy it, but we're not going to pay for X, Y, Z for you. So, but like I say, some kids want to be recruited. It's just like like they say, a pretty woman want to be dated and she want to be wooed. You got to woo some of those kids. But we used to talk, as coaches, we would say the best thing you can do, or what makes the best recruiters is not that coach, is the logo that he has on his chest sometimes that's going to make a guy a better recruiter than what he actually is.
Gotcha. Man, when you said woo, woo, you remind me of Jeffrey Osborne. You can woo, woo, woo with Jeffrey Osborne. Talking right now with Coach. Yes, sir. We're talking with Coach Heist Northern, our football guru here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Recruiting. Now, Coach, we do know that all budgets are not equal, and I'm just going to put a hypothetical situation out there. Your budget is flat. You have absolutely nothing, but you're still expected to put together a winning product. What are some creative ways that you've heard of recruiting, or that you may have done yourself, that can kind of overcome that financial challenge?
The biggest thing that you can do is just try to get guys to come up for what we would call an unofficial visit. You may say, look, for whatever reason, sometimes, so I would just say one year when we were at Prairie View, because of something that happened before we got there, we could only bring in 25 kids on official visits. So we would have to tell people, look, we can only bring 25 people in, but for a local guy, if you want to come up, and you can use one of your school days, we would have it set up for them to come up and do everything that they would do. We make sure they met with the academic advisors, met with compliance officers, had a chance to tour the weight room, tour the gym, tour the practice field or the stadium or whatever. The other thing that we would do is we would tell one of our guys on the team, or a couple of guys, so we might have a couple freshmen and a couple upperclassmen that lived in the regular dorms, and if we had a guy that lived in the quote-unquote honors dorms, we would tell them, hey, man, keep your room recruit ready. So if we got a guy coming on Thursday, I want him to see your room. So make sure it's clean. It's not, as the kids say, and you know, you can't smoke on campus, but make sure it's not smoked out. Make sure you got everything up. We don't want to see any alcohol bottles, you know, all those types of things. And we would tell our coach, man, keep your car recruit ready, because you don't know when a kid is going to come on campus and you may have to take them around. So the biggest thing is taking advantage of the unofficial visits, which is it is unlimited, the amount. So we may try to do that with more of our local guys. Also, too, you can use, just say, I know DeAndre Cooper is a coach at C.E. King High School, so I might try to tell any guys that I know that went to school at Prairie View, or even some of my guys from Southern, Grambling or whatever, if I know he coaches at a school, I might say, hey, man, see if you can take a day and bring such and such. And most coaches will say, man, I'll do that for you, coach. And get them up in the morning, come on up to campus. We'll show you around. We'll make sure you get fed, and then y'all go back the same day. If it's a guy, especially if it's a guy that he may be on the board but not high on the board, or he may be one of our top walk-on prospects. And at the FCS level, you're going to get some of your walk-ons that's going to end up starting for you. So that's one of the things, the creative ways that we would try to, you know, stretch our money, get some guys on campus without spending money on them. And then, like I say, we just trying to tell the parents, you know, y'all come up, we'll give you a meal, or you can, you know, pay to eat in the cafeteria, $3.50 for a buffet or something like that. So it's a couple of different ways that you can stretch that budget.
Now, Coach, when you go to your war room and you got your board on your desired positions to be filled, not even the desire, but a need is, you know, you need these positions filled. And, of course, everybody has their typical top choice, and then you start separating, you know, what is going to be more realistic and logical fit for us. But doesn't mean I don't want to at least throw a dart up there at that upper echelon potential prospect. Because the way I look at it, all of it is a gamble. Even if they 5-star, they still could be a dud. You could find a 1-star who turns out to be All-American. So it's all about recruiting, other than the obvious. When you look at the size, the speed, and all that, what are some of the things that you would look for as a recruiting to fit your program?
I would look in to see, what is this kid going to develop into? And one of the things that we talked about was the Texas high school kids may come in a better project or prospect when they first get to your campus, because those kids come from structure in terms of 9 times out of 10, they have been in an organized weightlifting program from 7th or 8th grade, depending on where they go to school. So that's one thing. The other thing, we would say the Louisiana and Florida kids that we get, their best football is probably ahead of them, because a lot of those guys may have played football, ran track, football, basketball, so they're not getting the weightlifting, and the structure is not there. There's a lot of schools in Louisiana that don't have a true athletic period like the schools in Texas do. So you have to think, where's that kid going to project in a couple of years? Is he going to get stronger? Is he going to get faster once he's in an organized way? Is he going to put on weight because he's out of mama house? He going to eat 2 or 3 times a day, and not just Takis and Doritos and powdered donuts. He going to be able to go to the cafeteria and eat some eggs and, you know, some real meat and stuff like that. So you have to look at, where's the kid going to project in a couple of years? The other thing that I would tell my guys, and I've been told this myself, don't fall in love with a guy because he's in your area or because you are recruiting that kid. If another coach brings a kid to the table that's better than your guy, you have to man up and say, all right, that kid is better. Let's focus on the kid that's better right now, or the kid that's going to project better. So one thing we look at, just say the cornerback position was a tough one because a lot of people in Texas don't play bump and run, man to man. They play what we call shuffle, crossover, cover 3 or cover 4 football.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it's not good from a technique standpoint to tell, can this kid play man to man? But if you go to Florida and Louisiana, you're going to see guys, they up in your face, they put hands on you, and you can see a kid that has good hips that can turn and run with a guy, or a kid that has good speed, or a kid that has good ball skills. So that's another thing we will tell guys. Don't fall in love with a guy just because you're recruiting him or just because he's, from your area or, his daddy was a good football player. All that in the big scheme of things don't mean much. So be careful of who you fall in love with. And Doug would tell us primarily because he had such a big name, we could get access to some kids in Louisiana primarily and even in the Houston area that a lot of people, especially HBCUs, couldn't touch. And he would say, all right, shoot your shot at the 4- and 5-star kids because it may not work. You may get a call from a kid 2 or 3 years from now, like, hey, coach, I remember when you came to my school, I'm thinking about transferring. Do y'all have any opening at my position? So, shoot your shot, but he would always tell us, make sure you have a prom date. Don't get caught up with the pretty girl that everybody's chasing at. Yeah, talk to her, but make sure you bring a date home at the end of the day.
Yes, sir. I do understand that one quite fully. Now, when you talked about something, and I hear it all the time, you guys say, well, man, we need some 6'1", 6'2" DBs, and we got a lot of guys that's out of Texas, but it goes right back to saying when they're used to playing zone, they can't play that man-to-man coverage or they have tight hips, it makes it hard to recruit. And then I also say that kid has to want to be where you're recruiting from, right? Because even though they're in the state and even though they would be a nice fit, at least they look good in a uniform, they have to want to be there and they have to be willing to work and not look down on the opportunity because some people think they're greater than a Prairie View, a Texas Southern, a Grambling, or Southern, and they think they should be in the Big 12 when they really should be in the Red River Conference.
Yeah, it's like the old saying. Me and my wife always joke about, like I say, I was, since I'm in Texas, I might say, well, I was committed to Texas, but they wasn't committed to me. So, you have these dreams of where you want to be and where you think you should be, but at the end of the day, you have to be somewhere that somebody wants you. So, and the other thing is that's so hard is people see kids and they see glimpses of highlight films, but they don't see everything. Or they haven't seen the kid from Shreveport, Louisiana that, a coach go and see. And I always told coach, if you go see a kid in person, you can't miss on the kid that you have seen in person because you get to see more character traits, more of how does he act around his teammates. So the biggest thing is finding guys that you think can fit into your program, and then sometimes you have to convince guys. The craziest thing to me is, and I may be wrong because I'm an HBCU guy, just say if you have a kid that's been in Houston his whole life, never been coached by a white guy, and then all of a sudden it takes, for him to get to the next level, it takes some white coaches to get him to the next level, or a white school. Like, hold up, man. You ain't never had a white coach your whole life, so you going to tell me now that's what it takes for you to get to the next level? So that's the other puzzling part with some of these guys and their mindset, and even some of the high school coaches and their mindset of, I need to send my kid to X, Y, Z. And now that Sam Houston has moved up, they getting more of a look from a guy that probably would have been at a Texas Southern or even a Stephen F. or, somewhere like that. But now those guys are taking a chance on, let's go there. And then the transfer portal is making it where guys will say, even if they just started recruiting me 2 weeks before signing day, these people have been talking to me all along. I'm going to go to this school and if it don't work out, then I'll transfer back down, or I'll come back home to a Prairie View, Texas Southern, Grambling, that type of thing.
Right. You kind of remind me of the latest update about Andrew Body. Left Texas Southern, hit the portal, stayed idle for a while. Now it's been reported that he's committed and signed with Alabama State. Do you look at that as, I know it's a lateral move, but how do you compute that?
Well, what I like to say is that's what he felt like was best for him. And I had my previous thoughts on transferring and stuff like that. One thing that opened my eyes, as crazy as it may sound, was my son trying out for the baseball team at his high school. So Adam goes to Bridgeton. There's a school called Cy Park High School that is right down the street from Bridgeton. So what happens at Bridgeton, they have about 120 kids try out for baseball. If he does not make that team, do I let him transfer to Cy Park? That may not be as good of a quote-unquote school, but he has a chance to go and play right away. So that sort of opened my eyes a little bit. Would I want him to stay where he is and fight it out? But if you don't have that chance, with Body had a chance to stay, and I know Coach Dish wanted to have a chance to talk him into staying, but I think because they took so long, that may have made Body say, I am going to take something right now instead of waiting to see what they're going to do at Texas Southern. But like I say, all of that sort of goes hand in hand when you're doing what you think is best for you. And it may not always work out where you were or where you're going. So it's one of those, how do I put myself in the best situation for me? And as a parent, how do I do what's best for my child? The bottom line is he's going to a school on full scholarship. That's the way I look at it. And I would always tell kids, make the best of wherever you are. You can have fun wherever you go, but make the best of that situation wherever you go. Don't tell a coach, oh, no, that's too far away from home, unless you know you're going to have difficulty getting back and forth to school. But always stay open, and always try to do what's best wherever you go. Like I say, grow where you plan it, not where you think you're going to be in a couple of years.
Right. Well, if he can stay healthy, it's sure going to be interesting to see how he finishes up at Alabama State. But it came across my mind when you were going through what you were talking about. We're talking with Coach Heiss Northern about recruiting on today, and with all this that's going on, February 7th, to be here before you know it, some schedules have been released by the conference. Everybody's up in the air. And the one thing that made me chuckle when people saw that Texas Southern and Prairie View was going to be at a neutral site, they put neutral from the conference because they probably got confused on who was supposed to be the host team this year. And so people, why are they playing neutral? But it just goes to show people pay attention to what they want to pay attention to, right? Coach, I'm working on a project. And I'll just dangle this little teaser, and I'll let you respond to it if you agree or disagree with it. I think part of the challenges for some coaches is they're taking on more than what they were hired to do. And since we're talking football right now, I'll put football. I believe a football coach was hired to win games, not to change the culture. The culture is something that is handled by administration, alumni, boosters, supporters, and student body. The coach is there to win with whatever ingredients he has to mix together a winning portion. How do you feel on that statement?
Well, culture part is a word that a lot of people are using now.
Yes, culture, and I can't stand it.
Yeah, it's the university to me. But in your football team, I'm going to create a culture in this football team of accountability, doing your job, not making excuses. So I'll tell you a quick story. You're talking about, being asked to do something. So it was a guy that was saying some bad things about me in the internet world. Well, he came to Prairie View to pick up his season tickets. Well, he was having trouble getting in contact with the people that were supposed to be handling season tickets. So he sees me in my office. I am actually working on a travel list. So he's like, he hears what's going on. I help him, and then he comes back after he gets straight, and he says, "Hey, Coach, I want to apologize to you for some of the things I said about you." He said, "I never realized some of the things that you and other coaches have to do that's not a part of your job title or whatever." So, my thing is, like, even when my former players come and talk to me, no matter what level, I always tell them, man, you don't owe me anything. You don't have to say thank you, because I'm the type of person, I'm going to do my best wherever I am. But the culture part of it is just doing what's right, doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. The other part of it, I think you can help as a coach change the enthusiasm a little bit that goes into parts of
Okay, Coach, we lost you. We lost you just for a second, Coach. I don't know if you're still with me.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, we lost. Yeah, okay, we can hear you now. You was making a very valid point. If you could repeat that, please.
So I would just say the culture part of it, of changing, you can change the enthusiasm within a program, especially from maybe a fundraising standpoint, and from a standpoint of once you start winning, some things may change. But the overall culture of what is expected, the fandom, that's going to have to come from, I think, the administrative side and the alumni side. So I would try to make sure that maybe people saw me doing different things. I would try to make sure that I went to support all the other sports. I gave money out of my own pocket to just say a building fund, all those different things like that. But at the end of the day, the culture, to me, has to come from the people that are buying the tickets and the students of the university, more so than that coach that may not be there for a very long time, depending on especially where you are. But I do think that a coach can help guide the culture within his football team, but not necessarily the culture of the university.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm saying. The coach is hired, if it's football, basketball, or whatever, you're hired to maximize the team's potential with your coaching expertise and the recruits that you bring in, and the other parts that need to be filled in falls upon the university and the others have mentioned before. That's very interesting, because that's exactly where I am on all of this. But when that culture word is a word to me that's been abused along with the word brand. Oh, those two words drive me completely crazy, Coach, but we'll save that for another day. I know it's championship weekend, AFC, NFC. And I don't know, it's been a while since we talked about this, but I got to get your projections for this weekend, sir, and who you got, and the last two teams standing for Super Bowl 58.
I want to say,
okay, we lose you again. We lost you again.
Hello?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
All right, I'm pulling for Lamar and the Ravens so they can get off his back. But, man, you can't never bet against that doggone Patrick Mahomes, man. It's just something about that guy and the way he can get those guys to believe, even without the quote-unquote best receivers and all that type of stuff. He finds a way to keep them in the game, and sneakily, their defense plays better in some of these situations. So I want to see Lamar get there, but I wouldn't bet against the Chiefs. And I have to say, I'm pulling for Detroit. Even though I like what San Francisco does offensively, but I would say I'm pulling for Detroit and Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator. He and I worked at camp together a few years back over in Aldine ISD. But I'm pulling for Detroit. I think they're gonna lay there and pull an upset, especially if Deebo Samuels doesn't play.
Yeah, well, Aaron Glenn also was owner for a little while for a short-lived arena team, and had a Frenchies franchise out here in Prairie View. Nice guy, man, and yeah, and wishing him well for that. So you're saying the Ravens and the Lions in Super Bowl 58?
Well, I'm gonna pick the Lions for sure, but I don't know if I could bet against Patrick Mahomes. I'm pulling for Lamar, but my heart say that the Chiefs gonna find a way to win that game.
Okay, then, so you're going KC and the Lions, and if you feel that way about Mahomes, KC will find a way to win another Super Bowl.
Yes.
Okay, hey, that's fair enough, sir. I'm thinking the Ravens and the Lions, and I'd like to see Lamar hold up that Lombardi trophy. I really would. Well, Coach, time always flies when we get together. I want to give you some closing thoughts and comments as we get to wrap this segment up.
Man, I was thinking about, you never know what you're going to get when you bring a new coach in. So there have been some guys that have gotten head coaching jobs, and you may think there's no way they can fail based off their background. So, I'll just say, some of the guys that had, quote-unquote, Power 5 coaching experience that came to the SWAC and did okay, but didn't win the way that people thought they would win just because they had coached in the SEC or the Big 12 or different things like that. And then you take a guy like Coach Fobbs that had never been a play caller, and then he gets the head coaching job at Grambling and wins a few championships in a row. So it's one of those, like I say, a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Now, I'll personally say this. I did not think that Coach Sanders, Deion Sanders, was going to have a lot of success at Jackson State. Not because of his coaching, but because I wasn't sure, because of who Deion was, that the administration would put up with him putting family business in the street because of the guy that he was. You knew he was going to say some things like, why is it like this? And a lot of times at the HBCUs, they don't want why to get out to the streets. So that you never know what you're going to get. But like I say, I'm pulling for all the brothers that have gotten jobs. I hope they truly get the support that they need during this time without, now they don't have to worry about APR penalties. The biggest thing that they have to worry about is the transfer portal and NIL deals. So, for the most part, guys can just go out there and coach. But the other things that we don't know about from a coaching standpoint is, okay, who's dealing with budget cuts? Who's dealing with scholarship cuts? Who's dealing with, you may have a problem with the trainer or the equipment manager. But like I used to tell guys, hey, man, at the end of the day, people don't care what you're going through in life. They just care about wins and losses. So I pull for guys. You never know what you're going to get. I do think out of all the guys that have been recently hired, this is my personal opinion, I think Coach Mickey Joseph is probably going to have the most success out of all the new guys that have been hired with Coach Dishman, the coach at Alcorn, Coach Graves at Southern. I do think that Coach Joseph is probably going to have the most success because of his coaching staff and because of who he is as a person and some of his connections, especially within the state of Louisiana.
Yes, sir. And, word on the street was he was a candidate at one time at Texas Southern, but he landed with a Tiger, but with a Tiger of the black and gold versus that of the maroon and gray. So be very interesting to see how all of this pans out. Coach, I want to thank you, as always, for joining in with us, man, dropping us these nuggets. It makes us all more informed, better fans, where we can appreciate what these guys are doing on and off the field. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. Thank you guys so much for joining in with us. Don't forget you can follow me on X at the Mike Prince Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. And be sure to visit our website, at obnradio.com. And until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.